baits out of hardwood and ball peening aluminum lips and steel lips, and made baits. And come springtime, he would go to the river and cast those lures and started catching fish, started giving some away, started selling some. And so it's ironic, we're deemed a saltwater lure maker, and our start came from the freshwater market. So my grandfather moved down here in the late 50s, early 60s, where he came to work in the shipyards here in Tampa. And then, coming from fishing for freshwater fish, certainly they're great to eat, the walleye and everything. He fell in love with what Florida had to offer, tarpon, snook, redfish. I mean, just, you can imagine what the fishing was there in the 60s. And so we started designing saltwater lures. So our emphasis and our actually shifted from the freshwater product line to the saltwater. Let me get a few of my samples out here. We live in an area along the west coast of Florida where kids grow up, a 10-year-old kid, 11-year-old kid can throw a 10-foot cast net and live bait fish. I'm not going to stand up in here and say that my lures can outfish live bait. That wouldn't be a fair statement. However, there's a particular time of year, like right now, where, you can go to the Skyway and you can probably catch a few live baits. Maybe before this cold front, there was a lot of live bait there. However, the fish really don't respond to it quite as well as they do in the springtime and warmer weather. So this is just an option. It's very rewarding. I've got a 16-year-old daughter that really got into fishing like about 3 years ago. And now she just absolutely loves to fish. And I'll do a lot of different things. I'll live bait fish. I'll bass fish some. And what she truly loves to do is to throw artificial lures. And I think it's just great. It's got me focused on, why this one is working and asking her why she likes her favorite. So it's just a way to go out there and catch fish. Certain times in the springtime when we say have a good tide first thing in the morning, I like a high water. I could probably have several nice fish in the boat before you catch your live bait, unless you go out in the lights and catch your bait at dark, So it's a way to catch fish. I'm going to start off with some of what I would say 3 or 4 of the most popular artificial lures, some of which I make and some that are just a dynasty here in Florida. So let me just get my samples out here. But I wanted to show you one of the original lures that my grandfather came up with. It was called the Bassmaster. This is one that he whittled out of wood. This actually is a plastic replica, but I do have some wooden ones. I just don't like to handle them. But maybe you all have seen this. There's a lot of them on eBay. We made like 6 different sizes. You can see this is what was called the Bassmaster. And it has terrific action to it. It's a broken back model. He used to, bend the lips and everything. Sorry, I need to stay still, don't I?
No, you're good.
And this was one that this is where we got our legacy, that started the broken back minnow. He was one that came up with Bassmaster, and for some reason, I guess he let that name slip away to the magazine. I think he should have probably trademarked that. So, anyways, let's talk about, some basic artificial lures. Someone that is new to artificial fishing, this right here is the bulletproof bag. One of these floats, and there's many different varieties. This happens to be a Cajun Thunder style. And what this is a loud cork, and it actually does a rattle to it. And what this, I've got about maybe 23 inches of mono, get a 25-pound test mono, and then you can use a soft plastic, really any soft plastic. Mark's DOA shrimp works extremely well on this. I believe he sells a product, I think it's called a Deadly Duo or something like that.
Deadly Combo.
Deadly Combo. Very user-friendly, very easy to use. What's great about this is that if you're fishing, 4 feet of water, this keeps us right in the strike zone. So when fishing this, all you do is pop your rod tip, and this cork will move, say, maybe 6 to 8 inches. Let it sit a second. Pop it again. Every time you pop it, what happens is the lure lifts up, and then when it falls, that's when most of your strikes occur. Then you'll see the bobber go down, and guess what? That's what you came here for, and you set the hook. Okay, so this is very user friendly. It's just a cork with a soft plastic. I prefer a light head, you know, an 1/8 ounce or 1/16 ounce head. That way you get a very, very, very slow fall. So that's one that is really good for someone that's new to artificial fishing. It's user friendly and it will catch all types of fish. Any questions on this? I'd love to be interrupted, okay? I can stand up here and talk for hours, but I love questions are really good. It gets the flow going in the seminar.
The one thing good that I love about that is my daughter is now 9, but I've had her on the water since she was 3. That's the first artificial that I've started her on because it's extremely easy, especially for the young kids. And you want to get them started with something artificial, and you can't sit there. Bait shop may be out of shrimp. You can't. It's too rough to get to the skyway to get bait. Easy one, and she sits there and busts the trout all day long with those things.
Yeah.
Absolutely easy and great for kids.
Just make sure that you don't make the leader too long, or what'll happen is when you go to throw it, the thing will want a helicopter on you, and it's a lot harder to cast. And again, one of Mark's DOA shrimp, you all have probably seen the DOA shrimp. It's one of the first shrimp that's designed. There's a lot of copies out there. And I always like to push for the original. Mark has been one of the biggest promoters of artificial lures and taught people how to fish artificials, and he's really helped a lot of people learn to fish a lot of our baits. If you can fish, so when there's an opportunity to buy an artificial lure, buy one of Mark's DOAs.
Is that the same effect as you have with that kind of cone-shaped popping cork?
It is. You can use other different styles of popping cork. I like that rattling sound to it. And it really seems to attract fish. The shrimp is really good because it has a real slow sink rate on it. But fishing this cork rig, you definitely don't want to be fishing it in the middle of a 10 feet, 12 feet of water. You want to be on a flat. The problem this time of year is you have these real low tides, and those fish they don't feel, they're going to be out on the outer edges, so typically somewhere 3.5 to 5 feet of water. If you can find grass. Is there grass on this side, or do the manatees have it eaten up?
No, there's a little bit of grass.
Is there grass? The Fort DeSoto area, we get on those deeper edges, and that's where those fish will be holding in grass. I know you have a lot of mud over here, but
from here to the 6-foot markers, there's plenty of grass.
Okay.
Because if anybody's ever been out in the past couple weeks, if you notice why all the ducks are out here on these flats, is because this grass is holding a ton of it, and they love to go down there and eat all the crustaceans off the grass in the whole 9 yards. So yeah, there's plenty of it.
so get on that deeper grass, make long casts, cover lots of ground. If you're not catching fish, move. Try to find some fish. Another classic artificial lure, very user-friendly, is the gold spoon. This happens to be a Johnson. This is, I think it's an 1/8 ounce or 1/4 ounce. Really user-friendly. A lot of folks will tie a little piece of red yarn on the back of the hook. Gives it a little bit more flutter action. There's the red. I put actually a small little split ring and a swivel on it because what the spoon will have a tendency to twist up your line. So I rig mine with a little, with a little swivel. In fishing the spoon, you can actually just throw it out there and crank it back, and it'll actually just wobble back and forth. Gold is a terrific color. They do make the spoons in silver as well. Some people will even use a small little pulsating type twitch with it with a spoon. But again, this is really good to use. And also, when the water warms up a little bit more, there's going to be more floating grass. This is great because it is weedless. Really good thing is it only has one hook also. So the gold spoon is a must, at least in Florida fishing, maybe in all Gulf Coast waters. Okay, the next we sort of touched on a little bit is a soft plastic on a lead head. This one that's really user-friendly, we have one called the Marshminnow. It actually looks like a mullet. It's got a small little indentation here which allows you as a sight to get it hooked on straight, and it's got this big large paddle tail. This actually is a paddle tail that we're going to come out with at ICAST this year. It actually is a motor oil color, and at the tip it's a silver glitter to it. So we're going to call it sparkle tail, something a little bit different. There's not too many of those that I've seen on the market. We're going to have some Florida colors. I typically like the paddle tails in a darker color, like a watermelon or a golden brim motor oil. These are super baits. You throw them on an 1/8 ounce head if you're fishing real shallow, or a 1/4 ounce head. Throw them out there and just reel them back slow, and you'll feel your rod tip just buzzing, and and that's the tail actually kicking back and forth. Paddle tails are really good also when waters are sort of dark or stained or in the mud. You can actually just let that thing swim right across that mud and it'll leave a little mud trail. Very effective and user-friendly again. My favorite soft plastic is the Little John. It doesn't look like anything. It looks like a little tube, but it is extremely effective. See that right there? It doesn't have a paddle tail, it's a straight tail. So with this bait right here, you use a twitching retrieve. When I throw it out there, a long cast, and I go pop, pop, and then let it sit, let it drop. And you pop it up a couple times, and the lure will fall back down. When the Little John sinks, it sinks with the tail up, okay? The tail will be up. It'll pop up and let it fall like that, and that's when that fish is going to strike that bait. But the Little John is a really, really good bait for catching redfish, trout. It'll catch a lot of fish, and it's very, very durable. I do recommend, I had a couple of my Texas Pro staff talk to me about jig heads. Out there in Texas, they've been using this style of jig head for a long time. It's called a screw lock head. We actually make one. There's a lot of other different manufacturers, but it actually has a little screw. Most of the jig heads that we grew up using here in Florida were push-on styles. You basically thread on the plastic and push it on. And what happens though is typically after several fish, the tail starts slipping down. But with the screw lock, what you basically do is you thread it in here. My old eyes, I'm probably not going to get it too straight, but I don't think it makes any difference at all. Paddle tails it does, but straight tail it doesn't. And you basically just wind it right on. And you know, the great thing about this right here, once you wind it on, it may take a little extra effort, but now, grab that tail. Try pulling on it. Your pants don't fall down, okay? That will hold it right there, and you'll get more casts and more fish by throwing that type of jig head. That's just something that I really prefer. I really like that style of head. So the Little John is a really good bait, very user-friendly, and that's a super product along the West Coast. We even got a lot of them being sold right now in Texas. And again, use a snapping retrieve. You can't just crank the Little John, you have to twitch it, okay? Any questions? That's the lead head with a soft plastic. There's a lot of different soft plastics out there. There's a product called Gulp that's got a lot of scent to it. That's really popular around here. They run the Gulp on a jig head and then basically just fish it back real slow. It's a pretty effective tool for catching, inshore fish. Okay? All right, now let's talk about the lures that pay the bills around Mirrolure, and that's hard plastic fishing lures, okay? With the hard baits, a lot of you northern folks grew up with Rapalas with lip baits. This hard bait right here happens to be a Mirrolure lip bait. It features a small little plastic lip on the lure. What this does is allows the lure to actually swim. So again, something that is very good for someone that is new to hard bait fishing. You grab one with a small lip. Our waters are fairly shallow around here, somewhere between 2 and 6 feet of water. So you want a shallow running crankbait, maybe 3 feet, 4 feet. You simply cast that out and wind it back in, and it looks just like a live fish coming. And you can snap your rod tip every now and then to get the dart a little bit more, but that is a really good snook lure. Gold is a great color, especially on these in this area where there's some freshwater runoff, and it's a very, very user-friendly bait. Mirrolure, we shoot, the lip baits are typically made in a fashion where it's a side-by-side body construction slapped together and sonic welded. My grandfather decided the way he was going to make the hard baits was to get a head and a tail and then fuse them together with a solvent bond. Inside that head and tail, he put a Mirrolure, a mirror image, hence the name Mirrolure. So now we've got all these different foils patterns that we're putting in the lures now. And the good thing about the Mirrolure is the finish is stuck into the bait. It's in the lure, built in the lure, not stuck on. So you guys, maybe some of you that have fished the Mirrolure hard baits know that you can catch, sometimes 60, 70 fish on one bait. And it'll look all torn up on the outside, but it still has the reflective tendency, which we feel is important in catching game fish. Okay, the lip bait. So this is the lip bait. We don't make a lot of lip baits, but we make a lot of twitch baits. A twitch bait is one that you have to impart the action on the bait. Our most popular, #1 bestseller is the Mirrolure. It looks like a white bait, a little shad, and when we came out with this bait about 10 years ago, it really caught on very quickly. What people liked about it is it only had 2 sets of trebles, and it was really user-friendly. A lot of the old school Mirrolures that my grandfather designed had 3 sets of hooks, and they were deep dive. They sank. They would sink pretty quickly, a foot per second. And nothing's more frustrating when you grab a hard bait and you throw it out there. It hooks up in the grass. You're pulling in grass all the time. Maybe you guys have experienced that. That's when you want to grab something that's either maybe a floating version or one of these called a suspending style base. But the Mirrolure, if you have not tried it, it's our best seller. Pompano will hit it, snook, redfish, anything that swims out there in that bay will hit a Mirrolure. We make it several different sizes. Now, when fishing a lipless suspending bait like the Mirrolure, you don't want to overwork the bait. I was fishing one time. We were out near Fort DeSoto with C.A. Richardson. We were filming a show, and he had me up there real shallow. That's not really my comfort zone. I typically fish on the outer edges. I don't get up there real shallow for tailing fish. I just didn't grow up that way. I normally stayed on the outer edges and caught fish there. And I was up there, and we were seeing fish, and I was using my typical retrieve, snap, snap, reel a little bit, snap, snap, reel a little bit. And CA told me, he said, Eric, you really need to slow this down. He said, these fish are not responding well to, the action that you're imparting on the bait. So what I started doing then was just actually casting it out there, fishing it like a rubber worm. I would lift the bait up a little bit, maybe say 2 feet or so, gather my slack, lift it a little bit. And what I was doing, after thinking about it, I was just having the lure just sort of swim there a little bit and stop, swim there a little bit and stop, and we started catching fish, and we really got a nice show of redfish and big trout using the Mirrolure. So I guess what I learned from that particular instance there was you can overwork these baits. So sometimes if you're fishing real shallow, especially clear water, slow it down, maybe use the lifting technique. When the water temperature warms up in the 70s, that snapping, quicker retrieve is very, very effective. Okay? Let's talk a little bit about topwater lures. Topwater lures are a blast to use because you see the fish come up and actually strike the lure on the surface. Disadvantage of surface baits is your hookup ratio. You're lucky to get 70% hookup ratio on the baits. Okay? So why do we fish topwaters? Because to see that redfish come up, jump up on top of that bait and try to swallow it, that's why we fish topwaters. Then, if you get frustrated enough, then you could go to a suspending bait or a soft plastic, and your hookup ratio will really, really increase. But if you haven't thrown a topwater bait, this is one that I would suggest you try. It's a prop bait. It features a counter-rotating props, one in the front and one in the back of the bait. In fishing this bait, you simply cast it out, twitch it maybe 3 inches to 5 inches. The blades will turn and spin, and it'll sound like a gurgling noise, and that's what will draw the fish into feeding on this bait. It's one of those baits. I've got a 12-year-old daughter. We went out to Pinellas Point right across the bay here, and I said she has never caught anything on a topwater, so I tied her one of these like a 4th cast. She got like a 16, 17-inch trout, and she was really, really excited about that. So prop baits, and these aren't anything new. Many of you guys that fished bass up north, there's plenty of topwater baits. I think Boy Howdy, and then there's a bunch of other ones that we're using. You fish in the same manner down here. If you have some of your freshwater baits, you can use them here in the saltwater. These fish don't know the difference. Okay?
Eric,
Yes?
what determines the color that you're going to use?
Well, with topwater baits, it's a really good question. With topwater baits, I really like to be able to see the lure. So a bright color, I'm a big fan of the red and white. I can see the red and white out there, especially when we get into the surface walkers. That's when you impart the action. The style is called walking the dog. You twitch your rod tip while gathering the slack. And that's when it's really important to see if your bait's out there working. So bright lures, chartreuses, red and white. Hot pink is a tremendous seller for us. It pays a lot of the bills around Mirrolure, especially out towards Louisiana and Texas. People throw, not only ladies, but guys throw pink out there. They catch a lot of good fish on the pink lures. While we're talking about color, people say, well, what color would you recommend for the suspending baits around here? Excuse me. And a natural color, like a green and silver or black and silver, is what I'd recommend. We have an array of different colors. We make too many colors, don't we, Mike? So, and it's funny that because people will come in and they'll say, hey, you know, you don't have this color, you don't have this color. We probably make the Mirrodine in 200 colors when you consider the custom colors. Trout fishermen are like crappie fishermen. They always have to have something different and new. So the Carolina market is really, really popular for us, and we do a lot of custom. We got a broken glass series, and we got a lot of different weird colors for those guys up there. They like to throw them in. Thank goodness, it's a great thing. But colors stay with naturals around here below the water surface. And for top waters, choose something that you can see the lure.
Eric?
Yes.
Could you talk some about the rod actions that you throw hard baits with?
Okay. You know, saltwater anglers are funny. I find that, you know, freshwater guys, they have a rod to do each particular purpose, and I like to keep it simple. This happens to be just a 7-foot medium to medium heavy action rod. You can see it has some sensitivity. This would probably be maybe a little bit light for throwing a half-ounce surface walker, but for most of the lures that I'm throwing this time of year, this happens to be one we took out Sunday fishing, and I just grabbed it. I like to throw it because it's sort of a light tip, and it's good for you know, the soft plastics or a Mirrodine or one of those things. So I like to use 10-pound braid or even 8-pound braid. Casting distance is a key, though, at least in the Florida waters. When you get out towards Louisiana, they've got a real healthy fishery, and those fish seem to like to come to the boat. But here, there's so much pressure, you know, on these fish. A full spool of braid, and you can see that one is packed all the way. That gives you a casting distance. If this with a half-ounce, you know, I'd probably cast almost 90 to 110 yards, and I think that's what's really key to catching more fish. If you were to say, ask me one trick, I believe that longer cast really catches you more fish. And then I use a small little, maybe 22 to 23, 24-inch, 20 to 25-pound leader. If you guys got more snook over on this side of the bay, so if you're fishing for larger snook, you might want to bump it up to 30. So the other day we were fishing a little trout tournament there from the old Salt Club, and I was fishing Clearwater area, and the first place we went to was a dock line. I didn't do any pre-fishing, but we were working down a dock line, and my daughter was in the back, and she said, what are you going to fish with, Dad? I said, well, I'm just going to throw this Paul Brown. It was I'll show you the lure next. And like the third cast or so, you know, I was fishing that, and I got this hit. And I thought it was a big trout, you know, and it ended up being a 36-inch snook. And the whole time that I was fighting that fish, I knew that I only had 20-pound leader. And it was like in the back of my mind, oh my gosh, because I knew that lure probably could be down his throat, and that's what happens is those, you know, the way his mouth is constructed is like sandpaper, and it will chew right through that if you put too much pressure. And we luckily got the fish and got a good picture on it. So, but I think that was the only fish we caught that day. That was a tough day on the water. Okay, let's talk a little bit about topwaters. My favorite topwater lure to fish is a surface walker. And we make a ton of different kinds of surface walkers. To confuse folks, we've got two different pitches. We've got a high pitch frequency. Sounds like a tin can. This has two rattles inside the bait. You hear that really loud. Then we call that high pitch, and then we've got one with a single rattle made out of a propionate plastic with just a more subtle rattle. Now, I'm not going to overthink this much, but in rougher conditions, choppier water, when it's blowing out there like right now, wouldn't be fishing out there probably today, but say it was a sustained 15 mile an hour wind, and it's choppy on the flat, that's when I would choose a loud, noisy surface walker. I probably wouldn't choose, this is the He Dog, I'd choose something a little smaller, maybe We have a she dog, which is a 4-inch size. This is almost 5 inches. And that loud, noisy bait in choppy conditions does work extremely well. I would choose a low frequency rattle when the water conditions are calmer. We even have some finesse style surface walkers called the Mirrolure. That's when you use in the real calm conditions of slick mornings in June and July, where you go up on that flat and then the fish are really wary. That's when you use a very subtle topwater, maybe even one without a rattle or very, very slight rattle. But the surface walker, I went to a seminar last night, and it was neat because we did it on the water, right on the dock, and we had, it was Dave Zaleski's class, his school, and we were out there and we were demonstrating how to walk the dog, how to use a surface walker. So it was funny, my daughter was there and she had a rod and then I had a rod and we were there, and it was fascinating. I said to him, if you can fish a surface walker, you can fish any artificial lure, because to fish this bait, you have to keep twitching your rod and gathering line at the same time. And some folks caught on to it really quickly last night. Others needed more practice. But the great thing about the surface walker is you can cover lots of ground. I'm a weekend warrior. I typically don't have fish pattern. You can make long casts with that surface walker and cover lots of ground. When you start getting hits, find that zone in the flat where the fish are. That's when when you really find them, then you can slow down and catch more fish. But the surface walker is a great bait to use. The only thing that you'll find is we'll have a window in the springtime where we can get away with using them. And then the floating grass will get so bad, you guys get this gorilla snot on this side of the bay. We don't get that too much on the west side, but we've got the floating, eel grass that's everywhere. It'll get so bad where we stop using top water. And then in the fall, it'll come back again and you can use top waters. There's a nice TV show coming up with Bill Miller. We just had a lucky day out there in the water. We met and we filmed a TV show. We were done in about 2 hours throwing top waters last fall, and that's going to air February 20th, I think he said yesterday. So try to catch that show. We're over there on the west side. We're using top waters, and we caught a few big redfish at the end, but it was really neat. I think it'll be a good demonstration of how to use these baits in the field. So any questions on surface walkers? Okay. Let's go to, we sort of touched on suspending baits. The suspending bait is the best-selling category that we offer currently. We're selling the markets from Brownsville, Texas, all the way to the Chesapeake. A lot of shallow waters. People are fishing typically 4 feet of water or less. Maybe in Texas they fish a lot of probably knee deep and less. One of the baits that we introduced in the year 2000 was the Catch 2000. This year we introduced the Pro Catch 2000. This looks like a sort of a mullet profile. This particular bait's been around almost 16 years now, and there's been a lot of trophy fish caught, big trout, over 6-7 pounds on the Catch 2000. We make it in an array of different colors. Again, stick with the naturals. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. The thing about the Catch 2000, you look at it in the water, it doesn't have a lot of action. You twitch it a little bit, and it sort of has a little darting action to it, but trust me, stick with it. If you are in big fish, you will catch them on the Catch 2000, okay? We also have a minnow profile. This one works extremely well too. This one's nice because it lands softly in the water. So if you're fishing real shallow water, this is the mirror minnow. Features 2 hooks. It has a glass minnow profile, and that's one of the bait fish that snook really, really love is glass bait. So when you're around glass bait, we've actually got 2 different sizes. We've got a very small size, which that really, really is a good representation of a small glass minnow, especially in the all silver color. And fishing those, all you do is use a little twitch and retrieve, and that thing will dart right through the water. It looks just like a glass minnow. Very effective. I mean, caution you though, if you're around any mackerel, you're probably going to lose the plug. I don't like when that happens, but if you lose one, you have to buy another one.
Those wouldn't be the mackerel that had the little Mirrolure logos that are on the side. They're right next to the daggone dolphins that have the Team Mahoney symbol.
Typically smaller is better in the fish in the dock lights, and that's a Any other questions? That's,
With
Yes.
with soft plastics, I don't know if you find one way or the other, but like when the water's clear, do you try to stick to lighter colors? I know you said like darker color paddle tails.
I pretty much like all dark colors.
Yeah.
Even in clear water, I like dark colors. I just have had a lot of success with those, and I'm not one to change. You know, somebody asked me last night, how many times do you change your lures when you go out there? I mean, I will throw that Little John in that dark color, and I just have so much confidence in it.
See, I've had way more luck with the white Little
Yeah.
John than anything else.
You know what? And I've thrown pearl a lot too. So, you know, I think it boils down to sometimes is being in fish. You know, a lot of people in here say, well, I want a lure that'll catch a snook, or I want a lure to be fish. You have to be in fish to be successful. And, you know, there's a lot of great products on the market. And if you're not targeting fish, you know, or can find fish, you know, you're not going to be lucky, even with live bait. The only advantage with live bait is typically you can throw enough out and seed the water where, oh, there's one bust 10, 100 yards down the shoreline. Let's go try to get him, you know, and you might land in some fish. But that's a good thing. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about patterning the fish. That might be a good thing to talk about as well. Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir.
What's your go-to bait in the wintertime?
Two baits would be, I would say, a Paul Brown, and I'll talk about that next, a Paul Brown original, and I'd say that Little John. And people always say, what would it be, if you had to choose one bait, what would it be? Be Mirrodine.
It'd be the most expensive one he sells.
It's a coincidence.
I'll tell you, it's funny though, you know, we're in an area where there's a lot of pompano jigs that are tied or poured or what have you, little ice jigs around here. And old Doc over there on the west side, he sells a lot of pompano jigs, and I had so much fun with him because we own but the world record pompano was caught on a topwater Mirrolure in Port St. Joe. So we'd always see him. I'd say, hey, who has it? You're selling a lot of pompano jigs, but whose lure caught the world record? So that was like a 9.5 pound fish caught in Port St. Joe. The guy was almost going to eat that fish, but they weighed it on a certified scale. Okay. We'll talk a little bit about surface baits, suspending baits. Let's talk about Paul Browns. Before we purchased this company 5 years ago, I got sick and tired of hearing Paul Brown this, and what they called them was corkies, because what Paul did is Paul took a 51 hard-bait Mirrolure, one of our Mirrolures, and he basically built a mold, and he made it soft, okay? And he used a cork to give it some buoyancy. So, hence the name corkies. Now, so before we purchased the company, I'd always hear corkies. I mean, Eric, the corky, they'd only buy corkies. They only buy, come on. They said, they catch 2,000 suspending style bait. I could catch them on that. I mean, if you're in fish, I mean, they're going to hit that suspending style bait. And I'm here to tell you, after I started fishing the baits, there's something special about the Paul Brown line. It doesn't look as good as a Mirrolure, it doesn't look as good as a Rapala, or even a Pradco bait, but it really works well. What I think it does, it pushes a volume of water in the bait. This is the original, what they call the corky. We cannot use the name corky because Yakima Bait Company owns that trademark. It's a small little something they use for fly fishing. And I called the company and I said, hey, listen, you know, can we work out a deal where I could use the name Corky, because they've been called that way for 25 years. You know, I don't want to fight the battle. But he said no, and he sicked those attorneys on us, and we said, okay, we'll call it the Paul Brown Original. This is the bait right here. It looks a lot like a Mirrolure, but it's made of soft plastic. It's got an internal wire harness inside the bait, and it's got a small little rattle that we paid way too much to a couple people from North Carolina that claim it's the best rattle in the world. And maybe it is. It definitely works well. But that's the Paul Brown Original. And fishing this bait is really unique because it's got a lot of side-to-side action to it. It's heavy. It weighs an ounce. Okay? You can cast it a mile. And when working this bait, use a twitch, and every time you twitch that rod and you leave that slack in the line, the lure darts like 16, 18 inches, one way to the other way. And it's amazing. It's a fun lure to fish shallow water when they're not actively hitting top waters. This is a very good lure. It pushes a good volume of water, and it really, really catches fish. The world I'm sorry, the Texas state record was, it's not, it doesn't, well, at one time it was 13 and a half pounds was caught using this bait right here, and it really gave him a lot of fame to him. That Texas record has been beat, I think, by a fly rod guy like 15 pounds in Texas, but we did own the Texas record for quite some time on this bait right here. We make other sizes and shapes as well. This one is called Fat Boy. Fat Boy's really neat bait. It's even weighs a little bit more than the original. You see, it looks like more of a pinfish profile. This bait is neat because you use a twitch and retreat, and it actually walks the dog below the water surface. We actually sell more Fat Boys than we do originals. But the Fat Boy is a terrific bait. See that at home? And a lot of big fish are caught on the Fat Boy. Now this is a bait that catches a lot of trophy trout as well. Really popular for folks that fish on the west side of the bay, Fort DeSoto area, called the Devil. The great thing about this bait, it has one treble hook on the bait. One treble hook, and it's got this little rat tail. In fishing this bait, you fish it like a soft plastic on a 16th ounce head. You basically lift it up and let it fall back down. Lift it back up, let it fall back down. Maybe have a cigarette every single time that you throw one of these, because that's how long it takes to work it back. Work it slow. And a lot of fish caught it at the game of great, and those have the one treble hook on it. So, good bait.
Up and down.
Up and down. Work it up, and then let it fall. And it'll sink about like this right here. But up and down. Just like a 16th ounce head with, a 5-inch, worm on it. Last year we came out with this bait. It really married the brands, the Mirrolure hard bait brand with the Paul Brown brand. We took our popular Mirrodine and we said, hey Paul, make us a soft Mirrodine. And that's what we did. We called it Softine. And it was a terrific success. Not only did it catch fish, but it married the brands together. Now people, they knew what a Mirrodine was, but they were a little hesitant because, that doesn't really look quite as good as a Mirrodine. They bought them. They caught fish with them. And it was a success for us. It was such a success that we came back with the Softine XL. You can see the size difference here. And both of them work extremely well. Again, a small little twitching retrieve, and the lures come alive in the water. Disadvantage of the soft plastic, though, you pay $9 for this bait. One bluefish, one puffer. I love puffers. It's going to destroy it. So that's the downside of the Paul Brown bait. But typically, you're using the Paul Brown lures in a shallow environment, a shallow setting where you're not going to be around strong fish like bluefish, mackerels, and that sort of thing.
So you and Mark Nichols are in cahoots with the puffer.
We grow puffers on the side. All right, that's Paul Brown lures. Paul Brown just turned 80 years of age. So, I'm going to celebrate on a cruise, and he's still out there fishing and doing a lot of design work for us. So, okay, any other questions? Yes, sir.
I always have debates with guys on how they tie onto your lures, whether it be a split ring, a loop knot. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't, here's the thing. I basically direct tie everything. I can tie a loop knot, but what I find, if I recommend folks to use a loop knot, they tie the loop knot too big. And what happens, it causes the lure to foul. So I direct tie pretty much everything, and I really don't think it makes any difference. That's my opinion. So, and a lot of people will preach the other, and I just think we're splitting hairs here, Concentrate on being in fish, and I think that, I don't think that fish makes a difference. These lures all have good action to them. They really do.
Can you tell us how many lures a year you guys put out?
I really can't say that.
No?
I can't. No.
It's got to be a shitload.
It's a lot. It's a lot. That's for sure. It's enough where, you have a good year and you sell a lot of lures, and it's not over $1 million though. It's not over $1 million. Yeah, it's less than that. But it's enough where you have a good year and you say, where the hell do all these lures go? You don't see them hanging from all
Puffer fish.
Yeah.
Mackerel.
You don't see them hanging from, go down to Mango shorelines, you don't see red and white lures sitting in the micro, so I guess it's like knives and guns, you know?
About 40 of them on my workbench at home that need new hooks. So.
Yeah. So
Tackle boxes full.
I guess in closing, I think it's really important, you know, for folks that are new to artificial fishing to, number one, learn how to use the bait properly. One good way is to hire a good guide, and you can learn so much in a half day's time, you know. And they're going to take you in. They want you to be successful. They're going to take you to spots. They're going to show you what to look for, and so that's what I would recommend. Also, you know, I think we get locked into, a lot of folks make the mistake of going into they want one hole. I got to go to my favorite fishing hole. Well, these are tidal flats, and the fish move up on an incoming water, they move out on an outgoing water. And knowing where those fish travel, finding those zones, how they get on a flat, how they get off a flat, that's what creates success out there on the water. And that's what guides learn from being out there every single day. So, anyways, I think it's a good idea to definitely get out there with someone that really knows the waters. Yes, sir.
For redfish, if you're targeting redfish, what is your go-to hard bait?
Wait, why are you asking?
Just out of curiosity.
The Mirrodine is one I definitely throw, and then the Little John. Those are the two that I've had the best success with. Also our provoker bait. It's a little larger soft plastic. I like to throw that because it's a real slow sink rate. Depends how shallow the water fish. I was fishing with John Oakes, and I think we were fishing one of the tournaments down there, and I was soft plastic, and he had that Mirrodine on, and he started catching that Mirrodine as he could cast it further, and he could keep it up out of that grass. And with that longer grass down there in Boca Grande, that was a better tool. You know, the only disadvantage is if you got to watch where that hook gets them, you know. So, but that would be the Mirrodine and the Little John for redfish. I never threw a topwater. I know some people had great success with it because I just knew that I was going to miss a fish with that topwater, and I'd rather not miss a fish. I'd rather not get a bite than miss a fish and then say, "Oh man, that was well needed," you know. So, but okay. Any other questions, guys? Yes, sir.
What about beach tarpon plugs? I know that
Good question.
purple is a big thing.
Purple, and purple. I don't know why. We actually made a sinking bait, the TT, which is the classic, and we make it tarpon ready. Purple, for some reason, it really works well. But fishing for tarpon, you know how much pressure they get, especially down anywhere on the beaches. Those tarpon don't want a really active retrieve with a lure. They want more of a lift. You don't want to snap that lure with those tarpon. I was fishing with Bob Puccinelli this past summer, and we were fishing real shallow first, and then we went on the beach. And his method, he was throwing a Catch 2000, also in purple, inside when we were getting those fish real shallow. But then he switched to this, and he caught one on this bait. We found a really nice school. Get in front of them, make a cast, and just lift that bait up a little bit and gather your slack. Lift it up a little bit, and they'll come up and crash it. But again, it's if you really want to catch a tarpon, you know, it's really sort of a live bait fishery. It really is our crab fishery. But there is still some folks that absolutely enjoy. I guess what I grew up doing was plug fishing for tarpon. From Homosassa on top waters, like the 7M. That's what I grew up. My dad burnt my brother and I out fishing for tarpon because we'd tarpon fish every single weekend for 2 or 3 days, just throwing plugs at them. So I've had a lot of good experience with that. And now, you know, there's not much etiquette out there anymore. Typically back then, you got on a school, that was your school. Nobody came in on you on that school. You know, you went and found your own fish, and I just will get too mad if I'm out there and people run their big motor right up. I don't need aggravation. No.
Do you have anything for grouper?
We
Like
do,
especially for trolling here in the
you guys,
shipping channels?
Yes, we do. We actually make a deep diving plug. Got it out of the bag of tricks there. And bright colors work exceptionally well. Orange is our #1 seller for grouper. I don't know why. Maybe they can see it. This is a 111 deep diver. It's got a big plastic lip to it. You troll it maybe 4.5 to 5 miles an hour. You'll watch that rod tip vibrate. Troll it on 40 to 50-pound braid. Small shot of monofilament leader, maybe 50-pound leader. Put it back about 200 to 225 feet behind the boat and just troll right up up and down, sideways, back and forth on the edge of the ship channel. And there's a lot of grouper out there. Only thing that can be frustrating is if there's a lot of floating grass, what happens is that floating grass will come right down that line, grab on that lip, and the lure will come up and it'll foul. After about 6 times, you basically want to throw these things down. You're reaching for beer already in the cooler. That's when you go to a number 3 planer with a 3.5 drone spoon. And let me tell you what, that is a very, very effective tool at catching grouper out here in this bay. I've caught many fish using that. Typically use a 3 planer, maybe 10-foot line, a really good swivel, and then another 5-foot of line, get about 15 feet away from that planer, and that drone will absolutely catch fish. And the great thing is that grass will come, it'll collect on the planer, and it won't foul the spoon at all.
How deep will that dive to?
This one right here, about 25 feet,
25
23 feet. Another good area is Southwest Channel. That's where I like to fish because there's a lot of rock there, a lot of limestone. There's keeper gags and red groupers in that pass. Some years are better than others, but it's ideal for a plastic lip bait like either a man's 25 or ours. This lure actually has a very unique swim action to it. It doesn't just lock into one little action like this. It actually is all over the place like this. It's really good for kingfish and Spanish mackerel. It'll actually zigzag back and forth while it's swimming. And we also make a lipped bait, a metal lipped bait in the same size plug. That one only dives about 12 feet, but it's really good for fishing for kingfish because you get a large flash off the metal lip when it swims. I've got one of those. Actually, it's in a package, but that's the metal lip version. That's our 113. I think the plastic lip's a better product myself. And it's amazing. I've been out 40 feet of water, 45 feet of water off the coast, and be pulling these in a grouper. If he can see it and the waters are clear typically in the springtime, he'll come up 15, 20 feet in no time and grab that lure. Have double headers. So up to 40 feet. But what I typically do is run a planer out there too, or stretch 30, and then a planer rod, and then run 2 111s back behind there. That way you cover a little different water columns.
It's amazing how sensitive them plugs are. I've tried to decorate them with fingernail polish and stuff, and you get too much laid on there, they'll travel funny. You can ruin a plug trying to play with this
You
loop.
can. We actually have it's sort of neat. At our facility, we've got a tuning tank. Every lipped bait like this right here, we actually swim down a tank, and we've got a gentleman that actually tunes them. And there's a little wire that's right in the lip right here, and you get a small little hair and needle nose, and make a slight little tune to it, and you get the lure to swim right again. But you can knock it out of tune really quick. You're right about that. Also, it's important that the hooks are in line. See how that back is straight there, and the belly is straight. With those things just twisted one way or another will cause the lure to run differently as well. Crazy. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I take a lure out of the box. I don't know how deep it's going to go, except it's written on the box. I take a marker and write it on the side. Is there any way you can do that with your lures, either that or put on this?
Walter, that's a great
14.
question.
Yeah.
Great question, Walter. The line attachment tells you about the bait. You can blame my grandfather. He was designing baits so quickly that he assigned a number system. That's one thing that I would love to change is change and have names to the baits. However, the line attachment tells you everything about the bait. For example, if the line attachment is in the chin of the bait, not the tip of the nose, but the chin of the bait, it's a surface walker, okay? If the line attachment is on top of the head, right above the lure's eye, like this bait right here, you see that? The line attachment is right above the eye. It's a sinking plug, okay? And then the strongest category we have is a suspending category where the line attachment is right in the tip of the nose. What you can also do too is you can throw the lure over the side, and if it floats, you know it's a floater, and it sinks. You could buy another one like that, know it's a sinker. See, the line attachment's right at the tip of the nose on that one. That's a suspending style bait. That's a very good question. I wish there was, it's like the English language, there's always exceptions to the rule, but typically top of the head, sinker, tip of the nose, suspending bait, chin, surface walker. Those three angles. Good question. Anything else, guys? Thank you very much for having me tonight. We appreciate you purchasing using Mirrolures, Paul Brown lures, and Island lures. We know you all have a choice, and we do appreciate your business. Thank you.